First of all, there are new restrictions with regard to travel and the Canadian border that the Prime Minister announced this afternoon. So as of noon on Wednesday, March 18th, travel into Canada will be restricted to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. There are exemptions for flight staff, diplomats, U.S. citizens, and immediate family members of Canadian citizens or travelers going on to other destinations. So the Prime Minister was pressed on why there are exemptions. He didn't really answer that question outside of saying that he was going on advice from healthcare professionals. So so as of Wednesday, travel into our country will be restricted to Canadians and permanent residence holders for the most part. As well, anyone regardless of citizenship who is showing symptoms of COVID-19 will not be permitted to get on a plane bound for Canada. So this, I think, is long overdue. These are measures that our party has been calling on for some period of time, but those will go into effect as of March 18th, so Wednesday. So the obvious follow-on to this, the Prime Minister did make a very blunt statement today. He said, essentially, if you're overseas, it's time for you to come home. We are seeing many commercial airlines cancel international, especially overseas flights. So if you are watching this, if you're abroad, if you have a family member or a friend who is considering coming home, essentially what the Prime Minister said this afternoon is that the window to return home with regard to commercial flight availability is rapidly closing. So there's one more thing that he announced this afternoon to be aware of. As of Wednesday, Canada will only be accepting international flights to 4 airports: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary. And the exemption for this is U.S., Caribbean, and Mexican flights. And this is ostensibly to provide a greater degree of healthcare screening or health screening. We still don't have the details on that either. To date, domestic Canadian travel isn't affected. And what they've said is that from here on in, all international travelers will be asked a series of questions and advised to self-isolate upon return. The Prime Minister was asked in his press conference today if there would be mandatory quarantines for people coming in, and I didn't quite understand the answer. It was essentially no, because they didn't have resources to enforce this. But I will just say this, look, if you have come back into the country from anywhere abroad, stay at home for 2 weeks. That is the least you can do. If you are abroad right now, you should be, according to the Prime Minister's advice, considering coming home as quickly as possible, and he linked that specifically with regard to the availability of commercial flights. But I'm going to bridge into some of the other reasons why you may want to consider coming home, according to the Prime Minister's office, and I'm going to talk specifically to snowbirds. I've had many dozens of people phone my office in the last 24 hours, either with family who are snowbirds, and they're saying, like, what do we do? Do we cut our time down south short? What's happening? So I will speak to, first of all, from my personal experience. One set of my parents are snowbirds. They decided to come home early. I'm very glad that they did. And the rationale that we went through, and again, I'm not offering you advice, I'm just saying the conversation we had as a family was to essentially make sure that they were somewhere where we knew they could get a high level of health care. So I'm just going to read what some of the Government of Canada talking points are here, what they've put out this afternoon with regard to snowbirds. So all essential travel outside of Canada should be avoided until further notice. Canadians who are outside of Canada should find out what commercial options are still available to return to Canada, and should consider returning to Canada earlier than planned, as these options are becoming more limited. Airlines have canceled flights. New restrictions may be imposed with little warning. Your travel plans may be severely disrupted, and you may be forced to remain outside of Canada longer than expected. I think that's a key point. This situation is evolving minute by minute, and we don't know what this is going to look like in terms of projections into the future. So that's why advice is being given to return home. It's important to remember that if you travel abroad, you could be subject to the measures of other countries, and you might have reduced access to quality health care. Again, something to consider when making this decision is that we know that a significant percentage, I believe, and again, we don't have all the data, but the figures that I've been seeing internationally are somewhere between 12 and 15% of cases of COVID-19 require hospitalization, and a percentage of that require intensive hospitalization. So when you look at healthcare capacity around the world, that's where a lot of legislators and policymakers are having concern about limiting the spread of COVID because of access to healthcare. So you should be considering access to healthcare in your decision to return home if you're a snowbird. Travelers should expect increased health screening measures at points of entry for international destinations. Local authorities may impose control measures suddenly, including movement restrictions such as quarantine. So all of this information will be linked on my website. The link, as you know, I have a link on my website where we're just aggregating all the information from provincial health authorities, federal health authorities, travel advisories, etc. So you can click on that. It's at the top, or it's at the description of this video. But again, for snowbirds, the advice from Canada is return home, given all of the reasons that I've outlined that they've put forward today. Support for Canadian workers. Again, we're getting a lot of traffic into my office in terms of calls and emails asking about what's happening with unemployment insurance, people who might not have access to unemployment insurance, and small businesses. So the Prime Minister has announced that there would be support for that, but he has not announced the details of it. So we are pushing for those details, and as soon as I have that information, I certainly will be making that available to you on my website and certainly to my constituents. We will be sending out information on that as soon as we get it. There are, the government announced on March 13th that they would be establishing a business credit availability program to support financing in the private sector through the Business Development Bank of Canada and Export Development Canada. There are small business loans, working capital loans, and purchase order financing. They have an online assessment tool, that's the BDC, to see if you're eligible or not, I believe. And all of those links will be in the link at the top of this video description as well. And if you are a constituent in my community, don't hesitate to email or call my office if you have questions in that regard, so we can point you in the right direction. They also have a toll-free number. This is the business, this is BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada. Their toll-free number, if you're a small business owner, is 1-877-232-2269. And I just advise you to use the online assessment tool first so that they can point you in the right direction and we're not clogging that phone line. As well, since I last reached out to you, a state of emergency has been issued in Calgary by the Calgary municipal government, and that means that effective immediately, the following facilities are ordered closed: Calgary Public Library, all City of Calgary recreation facilities, and all city-owned partner-operated facilities, such as the examples would be the YMCA. Other city facilities are open at this time, and the City of Calgary is reducing capacity of its events and facilities to 50% of their fire load capacity, or to a maximum of 250 attendees. And this does not apply to grocery stores, airport shopping centers, or pharmacies. City of Calgary Emergency Management Agency, they are also on this, and a big shout out to them and everyone who's working hard there. They're saying that residents shouldn't worry about basic services, and that as of right now, transit will continue to run. So again, folks, I've had a lot of questions in my office. I'm trying to come to you as quickly as I can with the answers that we're getting. We are pressing the government for more stringent matters. I guess the last thing that I'll address very quickly, many of you have emailed me about the Roxham Road border crossing and concerns there. As you know, that's an issue that I've been fighting the government on for over 5 years. Our party has put in place significant suggestions on how to deal with the illegal border crossing issue that is happening at Roxham Road. It continues to this day. The government has taken limited action on that. At this point in time, the government has many tools and choices that they could be executing, including attempting to close a loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. I've done many videos on this. I've done dozens of videos on this particular issue, so you can just scroll through my YouTube video channel. At this point in time, it's really Justin Trudeau's choice to not deal with that issue and to allow it to continue unabated, which of course I find unacceptable, but it's Justin Trudeau. Anyway, my last little piece here is just to thank you all again. I would say this, you know, I'm a stepmom. I have teenagers. If you've got people that are young people in your life right now, they might not be taking this seriously. They might not understand that this is a serious health concern. And even though they might not, you know, they're not the risk group necessarily, that this is a very serious virus, and if they catch it, the risk is that they're certainly beyond to their own personal health. It's also that they're spreading it to vulnerable populations. So please, you know, talk to your kids, talk to friends, and just explain to them that they need to self-isolate, and that means, you know, that means not going about life as usual, and heeding the in terms of heeding the advice of health officials. And again, all of those links on how to do that are contained in the link at the top of this video or on my website. All right, folks, please keep contacting my office. Your questions help inform me in terms of what to push the government on. We are having apparently daily briefings with the government for parliamentarians, and I certainly will be taking your questions forward, as well as many other questions that I have. I think in coming days, we'll be pushing for more information with regard to the details on any stimulus packages that they're announcing or support for small business, and you'll expect to see that information here. Working hard for you. Have a great day.